Hi everyone, welcome back. It's time
Hey
for a new
everyone.
video. How's everyone doing?
Actually good. I have a working device, so that's been a couple of weeks, maybe even months, so I'm happy.
Well, so are
Peter,
we. That's good to hear. Maybe we don't need to edit out your drops, or hopefully this sound is better this time as well. We're really trying our best here. How about you, Matthias?
I'm good too. It's summer vacation approaching, so 3 weeks from now I'm off, and really looking forward to that.
Sweet. Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be a little bit quicker than you. I have 1 week left, and then I'm off for 6 weeks. So we'll see when
Really?
the next recording is out after this one.
That's crazy.
Yeah, welcome to Sweden.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep.
I think I still have to go 6 weeks, and then I'm off for 3 weeks, and that's already a lot, I think.
It is a lot. I used to, in my consulting days, I used to think that, oh, how am I going to remember everything when I come back from vacation, right? And I had those moments sometimes like, what was that about again? What happened to that stuff? Oh, right. But it takes like a week and then you're back into it. So it's really good charging your batteries for sure. But we're here to talk to you and show you all the new stuff that has been released in the Intune service release of 24.06, and also a little bit in, let's say, out of bounds, some weeks before and weeks after that. And the first section that we're going to cover is Intune, sort of specific related to not really Windows or macOS or those things, but it's more of the Intune as a service, right? And Peter is gonna show us some of the new cool things that has happened, I think, right? Basically around some UI.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're referring to these fantastic different things that we have in the UI now. Because now we can basically fold and unfold specific categories within the browser. And a new trick that Matthias even taught me is that we have a little star here right now that we can use to actually add favorites on top of it. So yeah, I think it doesn't get any better than this. So try to top this one, guys.
Good. So we were actually looking at this prior to starting this recording, and my lab tenant didn't have these new fantastic categories of elements. How was it with yours, Matthias? Did you have them, or you have
I don't
seen them?
have them, but I have customers with it. So I've been using the favorites, but I must admit that it's also a bit of a mess when you have the favorite ones, and then you have to figure out, okay, where was I needed someone that was not my favorite. So I'm a bit mixed about this.
But you know what it's all about, right? It's something new. Something has changed. You were really, used to how it was before, and now it's a new thing. You give it a week, and you've forgotten about the old experience, I think.
Not really.
Yeah. Okay. Are you saying
Give it a week?
Yes.
I'm getting old. Yes. After vacation, I hope they roll back this. No, of course not.
Joking aside, but I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm definitely getting used to it. I think the enhancements, if you click into the Windows platform, for instance, under by platform, not only do you have the favorites and so forth, you actually now have more Windows-related sort of configurations or of the different blades in here, which I really like, because previously you had like scripts and compliance and configurations. And I think updates as well at some point. But now you have these sort of cleanup rules, even though the eSIM cellular profiles is still in preview, haven't never really met preview, and I think it's gonna go away very shortly as well, as it has been deprecated.
Yeah, I thought it will be deprecated. Yeah, it already is.
So I mean, but I like that. Hopefully, this means that whenever, I mean, yeah, group policy analytics, that's new as well, right? That hasn't been in this sort of bi-platform view before, so that's great, I think.
It's good to see that it's getting a more complete overview. Definitely true. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't need to jump around in between the different places.
Yeah.
So that's a good improvement. And talking about changes from a general perspective, there has also been some RBAC changes to when configuring enrollment restrictions for Windows, right? Previously, how was that really, Peter? Do you remember?
Oh,
It's been a while
no.
since I talked
Yeah,
to you.
I actually don't know how it used to be. I only know that the change that they made, and that it's now actually only the global admin and the Intune service admin that can now actually do something with the enrollment platform restrictions. But to be quite honest, I actually don't know how it used to be. I think there were more roles that could actually do something like that, but it's now really scoped down to actually only the roles that you want to have that type of permission.
And it kind of makes sense to some degree, right? Because I mean, in my opinion, at least, I think that you need to set up an RBAC model, definitely, with
Yep.
providing your different organizational tiers, whatever it might be, access to Intune using the custom roles.
And
then
exactly.
you have a few people pointed out that have actually Intune service administrator permissions, and the enrollment restrictions is something that you should be very careful about editing, just not giving that sort of access away to anyone, really.
Exactly. That really feels like a tenant-wide configuration. So a configuration that only belongs to really specific users and not to everybody within a department. So
Agreed.
yeah, so I think it's a good change.
Yeah, for sure. And going into, or sticking into the general section still, for Windows, no, sorry, iOS and macOS, we can now see BitLocker and Firewall key recovery stuff.
Yeah, and I think it was the previous time that we mentioned that the BitLocker recovery key was also available now through the web portal of the Intune company portal app. But now they even made it broader available by also making it available via the company portal app on a different platform. So yeah, I think that's a good change to make it broader available, especially if you have multiple devices. That's a pretty easy method to get access to your BitLocker recovery key. Of course, you can have the discussion whether or not you want it to be available at all, but yeah, that's a little bit the same discussion as we had the previous time.
I think making it as easy as possible for the end user to find them, if you do have that setting, and allowing them access to it, definitely. Just make sure that you protect that sort of BitLocker key, because it can get nasty if it gets into the wrong hands, for sure. But that's cool, good stuff. Things are improving for sure. Matthias, there's some primary endpoint for remote help that has changed.
Oh,
What's
there
that
is. Okay. Yeah. So remote
Can't
help.
get back into it, Matthias. Stop working.
He was working.
Yeah, he was working.
I'm very
Answer
sorry.
email.
No, I wasn't doing that. Of course, I was here all the time. So, primary endpoints for remote help. We've been through remote help a couple of times in this series while it came out, etc., etc. But the news here is that we got a new version for Windows. So if you like to update to the newest one, which is 5.1124, you can go to the documentation and you can grab it. When you do that, and when you want to work with remote help, you need to package this as a Win32 package, deploy it to your clients, and then you're able to start remoting your devices. So the new thing here is that we are changing, or Microsoft is changing the URLs here. So if you have any firewalls or anything that needs to be updated, this is the time to do it. The old address was the remoteassistance.support.services.microsoft.com. The new one is remotehelp.microsoft.com. So it's pretty much easier to actually access. So
did you actually know that they also have short URLs for that?
Absolutely. They have aka.ms/remote help. Is that it?
Something like that. I thought you have a different one for the sharer and for the helper. And I know they were aka.ms URLs, but to be quite honest, I don't know the complete URL anymore.
No.
Do you actually use the short URLs? I just find them clumsy to remember.
I usually make the user click on remote help and then I take over their device via that.
Send them a text, right? Please open the browser, go to aka.ms/blah blah blah.
Yeah, it really depends, because sometimes they're way shorter than the real URL. So from that perspective, it can be easier for the user to just type it or that.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Certainly.
But one thing to notice here is that when you install the app, you are able to say if you want to receive automatically updates for your remote help. If you've done that, your devices would by now already be updated. And then, of course, you should hurry up making sure that these new URLs are accessible. Otherwise, start packaging your new app. Make sure it removes the old one or updates the new one, and then start allow list this new URL. So now you've been warned.
You have been warned for sure. And that basically wraps up everything on the general note of things that we have for this month, at least. But there's more news, of course, and some related to endpoint security, which is more specifically around, there's definitely improvements coming out here, I think, because we now have more granular RBAC controls for the whole endpoint security, or almost the whole endpoint security aspect, that node in the portal. And I've been advocating for more granular controls for many, many years. And I think they're not fully one-to-one there yet, but it's definitely catching up. And this is one that has been just lingering out there and has been tied to, you needed to use the security baseline RBAC control to basically just provide any sort of custom role access through the portal to those elements. So these things being added in there, I think that's great. How does it look, Matthias, if we take a look at it? Do you have it open?
Yes, I will definitely go there. But first off, we need to know what was the before this happened. And the security baselines and the endpoint security blade, it's all split up. We've been talking about this prior as well, where the endpoint security is part of the SOC related operations, and this is also a kind of policy blade where you will have an integration into MDE. So if you go to the security.microsoft.com and create policies from within that portal, that would also be found in this view here. So this is for the SOC people. If you have a division that are large enough in your IT, and that's why it's been split up. But until now, if you wanted to grant access and did custom RBAC rules for Intune, the only way you could grant access to these views here were by adding the security baseline. And that would then open up to everything, right? And that's not the point of an RBAC. The point of an RBAC is to granular control what the admin should be able to go into. So this is basically the change we've seen, is now we can go and create Intune roles, endpoint security, RBAC. And once we go into permissions here, the one that we would give before would be the security baseline, and then say yes to everything. And by doing that, you would think, well, that's only security baseline, is it? But that wasn't the case. So now we've got the permission to actually delegate app control for business. That is one of the 3 new things. We have the attack surface reduction rules. And lastly, we have the endpoint detection and response. So that is the granularity that you can provide now to a custom RBAC role within Intune. And I think it's really good that we don't just open up to everything. I recently had a case where we had a separate MDE team that needed to do several stuff. And when they start work, they also need to create entra roles. And this is just a real world example. So in order to have all these kind of permissions, so they had to have group admins to, for example, add and remove entra groups, a endpoint administrator admin as well for the Intune part, could have been entra as well. But then certainly you lost a lot of good granularity, and what happened was that one of our dynamic groups were altered and added a lot of devices that shouldn't have been part of it. So a lot of our Windows 11 policies actually applied to systems where this was not allowed. So this was not a great idea to give all that kind of permission. And this is just every day for a lot of customers out there. So please be aware when you move into cloud, be aware where you put the permission, how you do your granularity. And now you have these 3 new stuff that you can actually work with, and you should do that.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on something that you mentioned there, because you mentioned that so this team needed an Entra ID role for Entra ID specific operations, and then they needed an Intune custom role for Intune related operations. Imagine that, and if you start to scale that right into multiple teams and such, keeping track of all of that, it's a nightmare. So if you're in a position where you have and sort of either built-in kind of, or not built-in, what's it called? Let's say you host your own access application or tool or service that you have built that's basically lies on top of everything. That's definitely something that I can recommend if there's a possibility to look at those steps. Because in our organization, for instance, we have seen the same sort of problems or obstacles, right? Providing or finding a good model of giving access to these specific types of groups that needs all access to different kind of portals and stuff. And we basically ended up using our sort of, I don't want to call it external because it's not external, but internal access management kind of application or service that we have. Simply just controlling one group, and then we can add that group to the different places and build our own sort of layer on top with the access walls that we defined internally. So there's many opportunities or possibilities how to sort of solve that problem, but it can get really messy because there are so many different things. And if you want to put in Azure RBAC into that, that's even more awesome. So let's move on. I think we have covered everything that we wanted from the endpoint security aspect. Let's move into Windows. And Windows starts off with corporate device identifiers. Cool. Peter, what's that?
Awesome. Yeah, of course, we already knew corporate device identifiers from iOS and Android devices. You could already add them to make sure that you could basically tag a device as being a corporate device based on either the IMEI number or the serial number of the device. And that has now also come to Windows devices. So let's go there. And for that, I actually started at the same place as where I ended the previous time. So in the Windows node. And like Nikolai already mentioned, they're collecting more and more configuration options around Windows devices within this specific node. But of course, you can imagine that corporate device identifiers are not there yet. At least I haven't been able to find them. So to get there, you actually have to go to the all devices overview, and from there go to enrollment. And this is where you will find the corporate device identifiers. And this actually becomes more relevant. Now we have the, well, do we have to call it the new autopilot v2, or just autopilot device preparation? I don't know. I will just call it device preparation. Yeah. And yeah, the thing with device preparation is that you have to allow personal Windows devices to enroll, as long as you're not using corporate device identifiers. So to make that happen, they introduced corporate device identifiers, so you can start blocking personal Windows devices from enrollment again. One of the things that also triggers is that as long as you're not using corporate device identifiers, every device that will go through the device preparation process will be automatically tagged as corporate device. But as soon as you start using corporate device identifiers, only devices that are actually added with a corporate device identifier will be tagged as a corporate device, and other devices that are still going through device preparation, they will be marked as personal devices. So that's a good thing to keep in mind as soon as you start using this. And the idea is actually quite simple. We have the add button here, and we can upload a CSV file. And when we do that, we have a new option right here that basically already mentions that it's specifically to Windows devices. And the thing that it needs is that if you're building a CSV file, it basically needs 3 pieces of information. It needs the manufacturer, the model, and the serial number of the device. So what you can do is make CSV files that contain manufacturer. In this case, it's a VM on Hyper-V. So Microsoft Corporation, that's the manufacturer. The model is a virtual machine. Well, and this GUID, that's the serial number. And this is enough information. So it doesn't need to contain any headers or that kind of stuff. And once we have a file like that, we can just simply select it and open it. And after that, we can add that specific device. Or if there are multiple, you can add multiple devices at one time. But as I already added this specific device, I won't click on add because I don't want to break the demo. I actually don't know what will happen if I do.
Do it.
So the good part, do it. Come on, try it. Okay, I will just do it. Just see for the sake of this fantastic demo. There we go. Open, add. Oh, it actually said it was successful and it added 0 device identifiers. So that's good to see.
That's nice. So yeah, if successful and count 0.
Yeah. It actually seems to check if the device is already added. So that's a good thing to know. So now we all know. But even better, it also provides information around when the device is added. But even better, it also provides the status of the device. So as soon as this specific device is enrolled via device preparation, it will also get the enrolled status here. And the last contact date is actually just the last time it checked into Intune. So with that, you get a nice overview of the corporate Windows devices that you've added. So I think that's mostly it. So it's basically a good addition that we need, especially in combination with device preparation, to make the differentiation between corporate and personal devices.
Yeah, definitely. It absolutely makes it a lot easier, at least if you're doing or only going down the route of allowing corporate-owned devices, right? But this also comes into aspect. You are doing it. If you're thinking about the whole autopilot thing from years back, right? The whole idea was that somebody else was supposed to do this for you. Now we are back in the saddle doing these things again. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of it. I understand definitely that there's organization where this makes total sense, where they order 10 new devices, they get a CSV file, they just create one, upload it, and they're good to go. But on a larger scale, I think this is, in my honest opinion, a step backwards from that perspective to what we already had before with the OEMs and stuff and the autopilot database. But
why do you think it's a step back? Because you have a manual action?
Well, who's going to prepare the CSV file for you?
Fair.
Who's going to send it to you? How are you going to take how are you going to be the receiver of it? You now need a process. You now need people. You could, of course, automate everything, but then you definitely need a steady system that looks into the data that you're receiving, that everything is in the correct format and those kind of things. So I'm looking at this from a large enterprise perspective. This is not for us. We would have to change our whole process of purchasing devices to make use of this. And to me, that's not really worth it at this point with what we have today. Have to say that at least.
Totally fair.
Like I said, this is good for other scenarios, definitely, where it's easier, where there's not this sort of, wow, we need to move this enormous freight kind of thing, right? Or freight carrier or something, just to
oil
just
tanker.
Make use of it. What?
This an enormous oil tanker.
Oil tanker, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, well, we could just hire someone to sit here and click for all the purchases that we do, but that's not really the intention, in my opinion. But let's leave that for another, let's say, face-to-face kind of discussion, Peter.
Totally fair.
I can show you how it works.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, exactly. We need a beer or two for that, I think. But let's move on. I think Matthias is so ready to talk to you about some upcoming EPM changes where we can now create elevation rules for MSI and PowerShell file types, right?
Yeah, and it's here. It's live, right?
Ooh,
so
I know, right?
If you share my screen, I'll show you some magic.
That I can do.
AI Copilot. That's the magic.
Is that the magic?
Yes.
Yeah, that will do it for you.
I will tell Copilot to create this rule for me. No.
Oh, hang on.
You can't. You can't. It only has guided.
Those CSV files, right?
Okay.
And
Jokes aside, guys. EPM is a security product from Microsoft. Part of Intune Suite, can be purchased standalone, etc., etc. Now we covered that. And we also covered this in previous versions of what's new. But the new thing here is that finally we have other file types that we can actually utilize. So when you, from an IT perspective, want to elevate something, what do you elevate? Do you only elevate .exe files, for example? No, right? For example, you have file transfers. Maybe you need to go to some library where you also need to kind of elevate USE prompt. That's not there yet, but for now we have MSIs and PS1s, so we can actually elevate PowerShell scripts and we can elevate MSI files. This is really good. Before we could only elevate .exe files. So we had to make workarounds where we wrapped in our installers or even programs installed to .exe files to actually elevate it and make sure that we could work with the product. So this is built in now. I can right-click it. I can run with elevated privileges. And it's going to request to open this app as administrator. And that is because of we have this support approved method that we can use now. So if there's no rule for this app, we can just hit a business justification. For debug reasons. And we sent this to the IT department. And the IT department is now, of course, sitting in the Intune portal, and they would sit here all day long and refresh for elevation requests, right? Because there's
sure, that's how I imagine them. Yeah,
guys, come on, this is what you do, right? You sit here and wait. So problem is that there is no flow right now that will notify you that there are some elevation requests in here. But now I have this MSI file. I want to enable this user to actually do the debug. I approve it. And you saw how fast it actually came into the portal. I could even grab the hash file and the version, and then I could, oops, thank you, Edge, for that. I could even create a a rule that would exist for all devices out there. So this user or future user wouldn't need to approve this. So this would be nice if I could just tick or toggle something and say, I want to have this as a rule forever and assign it to these users. That could be an improvement for sure. But I can do the same on PowerShell scripts. So you would see exactly the same. Again, it's good to have a published verifier when you actually do this, but I don't know how many of you are actually building scripts where you digital sign all of your scripts and have a process for that. Nikolai, you maybe have that, but the others that is using Copilot to actually generate scripts, I don't think they have. So that would be what you see here. And of course, you can then just deny this. Nope. No identifier on this script. And then what happens? Not much, I believe. But I would suspect that in 5 minutes, something like that, I would be able to run this elevated. Enter business tests. No, it's still not received on my device, but it will create some sort of a scheduled task and then run this on my device.
You know what I would like to see here? As soon as you have that sort of approval, and as soon as that sort of approval, I don't know what it is, like configuration, has landed on the device, I want a toast notification, right? I don't think that's too much asked. I want sort of to give a user this sort of complete end user experience here, right? They have a nice way of requesting something, but once they made the request, they just need to sit there and wait and wait and wait and wait, because obviously no real world scenario works as fast as this demo, right? It could take up to X amount of hours, potentially days, before whoever is working with this has actually approved it. And how do you know that it's approved or not? Do you sit there and test it on your side then? Like you as the administrator is sitting there and clicking refresh in the portal? No. So those kind of small, tiny sort of improvements, that it just makes the whole experience complete, in my opinion. That's what I would like to see. What happened? I just need to ask this for both of you. Why do you think only PowerShell scripts and not like CMD files and bat files and those kind of things? It's a tricky question. No, I'm just generally curious, right? Because come on,
why not VBS?
Honest, right? There's a lot of people out there who are not familiar with PowerShell. There's a lot of people who still run on this sort of small wrappers in as batch files to do some things, right? Why only PowerShell? I think it's good. I think it's enough. That's my personal opinion. I think there's other people out there with different opinions. So I'm a little bit curious of why only just PowerShell. But
maybe it's just a start. I think if it's just a start, I think PowerShell is the good way to start.
Oh yeah, for sure. Star. What are you doing, Matthias? Stop.
I'm learning the bat file scriptures to run their bat file from in PowerShell.
No.
I thought you were going to make a install.cmd.
No.
Either way, let's not get too much off track. Don't do it. Okay, sure. It's yes, you're going to have a whole lot of new friends coming down.
Yes, I know.
No, I was just curious, right? I mean, I think you're on the right thing there, Peter. It's just a start. Hopefully, there would be extensions to this so that we can have other file types as well.
Yeah,
sure. So I think we have covered that part pretty well. There's some other stuff that has been updated related to the Intune suite, and more specifically to the Cloud PKI offering that Microsoft has. And if I understand it correctly, there's basically a new column that's showing some predefined values depending on some
Yeah,
how the
it's
certificates.
it's a
Okay.
really tiny addition, but it is a really useful addition.
Okay, let's see if we can get it on screen there.
Yeah, let's just have a brief look. So I have a couple of test CAs within my demo environment, mainly because if I have to delete them, I have to create a service ticket. So that's the main reason why I still have 5. But whichever I choose, they have a new property right here, which is the
That's the one.
CA keys. And that one is now indicating whether it's HSM, which means a hardware security module, or it can be SW, which would mean software backed. So that's also the main difference between the CAs that you can build, and especially when you build a CA during a trial period, for example, it will use these software backed keys. So if you want to still use that CA when you go from trial to production, it will keep on using software-backed keys. So that's something to keep in mind, that as soon as you quit your trial, it's also the best to start with a new CA, mainly because then it will actually be hardware-based. And if you want to check whether or not your CA is hardware-backed or software-backed, you can now simply check that by looking at the CA keys property within your created CA. So it's something really small, but something really useful also.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So basically, as some sum up here is that it's how the keys for setting up the PKI is protected either by hardware or software, essentially.
Exactly.
And before this, you couldn't really have any. There wasn't any way for you to understand that. Oh, did I set this up during trial period or not? Well, you can just go and check the CA keys then, apparently.
Yep.
That's cool. Small change, but definitely useful for sure. For those out there who started out in a trial period, definitely. Cool. We have another small thing lined up here that has changed with the latest service release. That's about, well, we were debating this before, to be honest, and when looking up this. And in the managed apps node, the sort of operational report there, we should now also see enterprise app catalog applications in there. Isn't it so, Matthias? I think that's what we ended up saying, that it was all.
Absolutely. But I just have a little follow-up. You were asking for something that would show that someone added something to your device, right?
Yep.
Wasn't that? Yeah. So as you can see here, the endpoint privilege management is actually saying here request approved, and now you are able to run the debug toolkit.
So you are getting those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, great.
So
that's good. You just kept it as a secret, Matthias.
We wanted to show a picture of it.
I wanted to show it, so I just took a picture of it. It was almost exactly 5 minutes after the IT supporter, me, approved it, and as I said, it's going to create a scheduled task and then run stuff.
That's cool. So we haven't tested this new EPM stuff. Has it always been like this?
Yeah, for the support approved workflows, yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Well, that's good stuff.
That's absolutely good stuff. But this was about the managed apps report. And this is a report that we got to learn on the device. So you go to the device and you go to the managed apps report. And this is where you now are able to see applications that are part of the Intune Suite app catalog, enterprise catalog. And Nikolai, this is due to there are some difference in the backend. It's not just a regular Win32 app, is it? Otherwise, it would be here, wouldn't it?
Well, we wouldn't have talked about this if they had made a new app type, object or application type, whatever. But now it's here. Now we should be able to see them, hopefully. The stuff that we were debating before weren't they really there? We weren't really sure, to be honest. But they should at least appear here in this view.
Yeah, I just deployed 155, the Audacity, right? And it was successfully installed 156, and it's right here. It's actually showing, and Audacity was indeed one of the packages I deployed from the Enterprise App Catalog. So you can see the proof right here, Windows Catalog app. So this is indeed what this news is all about. We can see it here. So that's good.
Cool. Nice that they are basically, fixing up those small things that has been kind of an annoying when introducing a new object type. It needs to be support for filters. There needs to be showing up in different places in reports and so forth. I wish that would have been the case when they went GA, but now they are fixing it, so that's good.
Can't have it all, right?
Well, we want to have it all. Nice, but let's move over to another topic, and let's see. Yes, we have some new enrollment time grouping features for devices, and I think that's related to the autopilot device preparation, isn't it?
It absolutely is, yes. And this was the big news of what's new in Intune. And I actually went through how to set up the whole thing. And we went through the device group here, where we included the Intune as owner, the Intune principal as owner on this group, to have it actually onboard or include the device while running this new provisioning. So the news here is that now it can much faster add a device to a group, and we no longer rely on a dynamic group which can have a SLA up to 24 hours. So this is indeed good news. It's much faster, and we can see it's much faster. We see reporting of this much faster. So I think that what Intune team is doing here is to improve everything from the start of a device not being managed to it being managed to also have reporting while it's enrolling and so forth. So this is definitely the right path for the team.
Yeah, good stuff. Everything that they do in terms of autopilot, I always think it's so exciting. I'm just grasping to understand how this would work real life, right? Because do you really want to have so many profiles? I don't know. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. Okay, so I have one enrollment profile, I have one group. What is to say that this device gets this enrollment profile, right? That's also another targeting mechanism. So yeah,
Yep.
To me, it's I can't really see a real world scenario for this yet. Maybe there's something additional, apply this configuration or something in the end, or add this device to this group to deploy, I don't know, applications later or sooner or something at that point. Not really sure. Do you have any comments or thoughts around how you would potentially use this feature? I'm just curious.
It's also for the assignment of, for example, the apps and the scripts that you want to deploy during the device preparation. So the stuff that I don't know if it's in the overview of Matthias at this moment, but yeah, exactly those apps. If you just making them part of the profile doesn't mean that they will actually be deployed. You also need to assign them to a group, which in this specific case could very well be the group that you put the device in immediately.
So basically, you have what I'm not really following here is so the enrollment profile you have here, or the device preparation policy, maybe I should say, that needs to be targeted somewhere, right? To, let's say, all my Swedish devices or something, because I need to have applications only deployed to certain countries or similar, right? How do I take this into a real world scenario? Maybe I need to play around a little bit more with this to figure out where it may fit in perhaps, but I think it's cool though, because I have seen some people out there writing blogs and discussing stuff about, oh, I need to add this device to a group afterwards to cover this specific configuration or something like that. So
it's definitely much persona based. It's very much persona based here. So if you have a division, a department, let's say economics or HR or something like that, you would create a user group targeting them with this profile. That would be the way to go.
Yeah, so you would do it on the user-based level instead of a device-based level, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, because then if you allowed personal devices, well, if that user were somewhere, let's just say where they couldn't get to a device, they could go buy a new device without putting the hardware hash into somewhere in the portal. You once you log on to that credentials with your company credentials, it's going to fetch this profile and get it to your device. So it's much more dynamic in such a way to actually get up to speed and run in your company again.
I think personas makes sense. It's just that when you have multi-purpose devices coming into that scenario, it's going to be a tricky one for sure.
Yeah.
But let's see what's going to happen in the future. This is definitely a good improvement. So, and that wraps up the Windows part of things for now. And there is some slight news around iOS and Android. Not much for this one, but I think, Peter, if you want to just demo it for us.
Yeah, sure.
Of the OS version picker that we can now use.
Yeah. So, of course, we already had the update profiles also for iOS and iPadOS devices in which you can create a profile. Let's just, for the sake of a demo, create one in which we can select a specific update and make sure to apply that specific update on a schedule. But these settings are now actually also coming to the settings catalog, which actually gives us a lot. It gives us more flexibility. So if we now create a settings catalog profile, and we do that for iOS, iPadOS devices, and let's say demo right here, we can add settings to that profile. And if we then look at the declarative device management component, we now also have a software update section in there with a couple of, OS and build related settings. And you can see if we select them, we get the ability to actually, select the specific target version that you want to be on that specific device. But the fun part of this one is that we can also type in manually a specific version. So that gives us just a little bit more flexibility than we already had within the software update profile for iOS and iPadOS devices, because we can now also manually provide a specific version. So that's basically it. Just some minor tweaks to those update-related settings for iOS and iPadOS devices.
Great, cool. Yeah, that's definitely something that makes it easier. That you can just, it's this version, instead of having to type it and go back and find out which one it was and so forth.
Exactly, and especially if it's not in the list yet, like something that happens often, you still have the ability to manually provide a version. So.
Yeah, I think it was great that you mentioned that, because I was thinking, so how often is this list going to be updated, right? I mean, remember the Win32 applications and then the sort of minimum version OS configuration.
Yeah, exactly. Or even think about the Windows feature updates, for example. They always, the latest version is always later there than you actually would want them to be. So, yeah, making it a manual entry makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely, cool. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. That's all we had for this video with the 2406 service release. I'll see you next month when we're back from vacation. Maybe it will be skewed a little bit or pushed a little bit forward due to a certain person with a lot of vacation to take out. I'm not sure who that is, but
it's not me.
Cool. Well, have a good summer, everybody. Enjoy.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for watching.
Bye all.
Bye.